To make matters worse, this Liberal government and this Liberal finance minister forked over $15 billion, tax dollars, to the company that is moving their jobs south.
Mark Carney was conspicuously absent from the House of Commons yet again today, and the Liberals were desperate to distract from the economic woes that they have brought on to this country. Welcome back to the Canadian Shield. My name is Sterling. We have quite an interesting exchange in this episode of the House of Combat as the Liberals, through two different members of Parliament at Pierre Poilievre. Of course, Pierre Poilievre withstood all of their foolishness and all of their attempts to distract from his very poignant and very pertinent questions. Now, before we get into it, I would encourage all of you to like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, share this channel with all of your socials. Let's get into it. Allow me to point out something that's going to happen in this video. When you go through the House of Commons, it's typically understood that you will answer in the language that you're being spoken to. So Pierre Poilievre will open it with the first question. Typically, he does so in French. He does his first two questions in French, and then he does the next two questions in English. And honestly, they're identical questions, but it allows for people to speak whatever language to hear it in their own language. Pierre Poilievre asked his second question in French, and the House leader of the Liberal Party, because Mark Carney is conspicuously absent, you'll note that they put somebody in his chair. I believe she's actually a member of the parliamentary service by the button on her coat. Nonetheless, the House leader stood up to answer the question, and he did so in English. And then, I guess because he didn't realize it or whatever, then he spoke in French on the next question. So I'm not sure what his tactic was. It could be that he just simply didn't, is not paying attention. That's entirely possible. We all know that the Liberal government is pretty tone deaf to listen to anybody that's not themselves, right? So I just wanted to lay that out there as we listen to this, and I just left a snippet so you can understand that the question was asked in French.
These inflationist policies so Canadians can eat. The Honourable Government House Leader.
A lot of opportunity to talk about the taxes, the imaginary taxes that the Leader of the Opposition comes up with. But last week, the Leader of the Opposition put into question the independence of our judiciary, of the independence of our prosecutors, of the police. In fact, the very police that put their lives on the line to protect him, Mr. Speaker. The Leader has the next 30 seconds to make amends, to apologize, to tell the people of this chamber and this House that he is sorry for what he said. We don't do that in Canada, Mr. Speaker.
Oh, we're back to this. Oh, it's Canada. I cannot stand this idea that somehow they're going to destroy the country and try to convince people that it's Canada. I got a news flash for this guy. There is very few parts of this country that the RCMP are not despised. They do all of the rural areas of many, many parts of this country, and many, many parts of this country do not see the RCMP as friendly in any way, shape, or form. The fact that Pierre Poilievre expressed his opinion of the highest ranking member of the RCMP and how he felt that an investigation was not handled correctly is entirely the job of a parliamentarian. It's entirely a job of a leader of a country. That's the job. It's his job to make sure that when he sees these things, he calls it out. Of course, we can't expect that from the Liberals because all they want to do is distract. For example, he was asked about how people are going hungry. 25% of the country is using food banks, and he come back with how the RCMP had their feelings hurt last week.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Liberals are trying to distract from their inflation and rising cost of living by talking about their corruption. This will be the 10th Liberal budget. Already, they've doubled the debt, food bank lineups, and housing costs. Every dollar the government spends comes directly out of the pockets of Canadians who can no longer afford to eat, heat, and house themselves. Their fridges are empty, Mr. Speaker. Will they learn these costly lessons? Will they cap their inflationary deficits and get rid of their insane taxes on groceries?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Monsieur le Président,
Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition is inventing scenarios.
So in his mind, I'm sure it's like, well, I didn't answer the other question in French, but I'll answer this one in French, and that makes it even and balanced, right? Completely ignoring the idea that the individual who speaks French might not have understood the question that Pierre Poilievre just asked him. I mean, because, it was in English. But these guys don't care. They just think that it's all for show. I mean, this guy here, holy moly.
To distract from the story, the leader of the opposition has had 2 opportunities to apologize to the RCMP, our judges, and our legal system. He has refused to do that. In terms of inflationist spending, so-called inflationist spending from the opposition leader, well, he still hasn't suggested one single way to cut or identified what spending, what support for which Canadians he thinks is inflationary, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Speaker, tragically, 3,000 auto workers in Brampton learned that the Prime Minister had sold them out and failed them in negotiations with the United States of America. To make matters worse, this Liberal government and this Liberal finance minister forked over $15 billion tax dollars to the company that is moving their jobs south. So surely the government would have negotiated a jobs guarantee for every single Canadian Stellantis employee. Will they release that guarantee and the entire contract so Canadians know where their dollars went?
The Honourable.
Just so you're up to speed, what has come out since Stellantis has announced they're moving to the United States of America and taking all of the manufacturing that they do in Oakville, minimum Oakville, with them, is that the Liberal government, the finance minister, had given them a $15 billion $15 billion. I won't call it a bailout, but I'll call it not a loan either. Like they gave him $15 billion. And now, a couple of years later, they're taking off. Philip Champagne signed off on that contract, and he's also not in the House today. Wonder where he is, the finance minister, that he can't show up to answer questions on, finance.
Minister of Industry.
Mr. Speaker, of course, what Stellantis announced for the Brampton plant last week was completely unacceptable. And Stellantis has made solemn commitments to this government and to their workers, and they need to honor their commitments. And that's why we will hold them to account. While my colleagues are just right now talking, we already know that in committee we said that we would agree to the production of documents. Thank you.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, surely Stellantis would not be announcing that it is moving a 3,000 worker plant to the United States of America if this government had negotiated job guarantees in that contract for $15 billion. To put this into perspective, $15 billion is $1,000 for every single family in Canada that was supposed to create jobs. So simple yes or no question. Is there an ironclad guarantee of every single worker's job here in Canada in exchange for that $15 billion handout?
So here we've not only now has the industry minister stood up and said that, we're going to produce the documents. We said so in committee this morning, right? Like everybody's supposed to be up to date with what's going on in committee or something. Then he says, all I need to know is there an ironclad in that negotiation? Now, it's a simple, straightforward question. We need to know that these jobs are, in fact, protected for this $15 billion we gave to this company. And while I got you paused here, when she says that they owe loyalty to their employees, it's 3,000 employees in Oakville. It's 48,000 employees in the United States. It's, I don't even know how many shareholders. They have a lot of things that they have to pay attention to. Of course, Melanie Joly, she wouldn't know that.
The Honourable Minister of Industry.
Mr. Speaker, let me be extremely clear. We will fight for these jobs because Canadian auto workers are the best auto workers in the world. And we will make sure that Stellantis face all consequences, including legal ones. That being said, an hour ago, I met here in Ottawa with the head of Canadian Stellantis, with the head of Unifor, and also with the Minister of Economic Development of Ontario. We're one strong team, Canada, and we will make sure that these jobs stay in Brampton.
The honourable leader of the opposition.
The funny thing about Melanie Joly, and I said this last week, every time she talks about Stellantis, she just talked to them in the morning. What she wants me to believe is that an hour ago, she met with these three very important people. And by important, I mean they have a lot going on in their day. The union leader, the person who is running the entire Stellantis company, and I don't know who else she said. But I can say right now that I don't for one second believe they all sat down together and got in on a Zoom call, especially not the CEO of Stellantis and the union member. Forget about it. But she doesn't care about the facts. She only cares about the sound bite, you see?
Mr. Speaker, still no answer. It was the finance minister, the present-day finance minister, who is in charge of a $500 billion forthcoming Liberal budget that was the one who signed this deal. And amazingly, barely 2 years after he signed it and forked over 15 billion Canadian tax dollars, the company receiving it is moving the jobs to the United States of America. That minister claims she might take legal action. She can't do that unless there's actually a job guarantee. So will she tell us, yes or no, does every Canadian Stellantis worker have a job guarantee?
The Honourable Minister of Industry.
Mr. Speaker, when this government negotiates contracts, they're good ones. And so my colleague will have the chance to see these contracts. That being said, we will make sure to put full pressure on the company. These jobs need to stay in Brampton. These jobs need to stay in Canada. And ultimately, the future of the auto sector is bright, and we'll continue to fight for it.
Well, I'm sure the future of the auto sector is bright in the United States. And maybe you think the auto sector is bright because we're going to be importing a bunch of Chinese electric vehicles. But I promise you that the auto sector in Southern Ontario, the future is not bright at all. That there are entire households that are falling to pieces over this. And it's very, very, very callous of you to try to use a soundbite at their expense. It's very callous of you to not be you always claim you're the one that's got your pulse on the thumb, and you're the one who says that you're talking to them left, right, and center. I'm sure that if you spoke to the Unifor president this morning, then you would understand it should be fresh in your ears. The amount of hardship and problems that are going on inside of that union and Toronto's one of the most expensive cities in the entire world, right? And Oakville, of course, being on the edge of Toronto. So these jobs are going, and people's lives are crumbling. It's not a joke. They're not like, it's okay because I had savings. There's no savings. It's very difficult to have any savings in the country that we live in now, especially when you live in Toronto, especially when you live on the outskirts of Toronto, which is what Oakville is. You can't really get around without having expenses. And so to think in your mind that this person's losing their job and it's not impacting their children and their spouse and their household and their car and their groceries is very, very, it's callous. It's very uncaring for you to stand up and say, we will fight for these jobs, when really the question was, is there a job guarantee in the contract? And by the fact that they ignored that question, 3 times? There is absolutely no way in the world that there is a job guarantee in that contract. They dumped a truckload of money into this company, $15 billion, so they could stand up in the House of Commons and tell Canadians that they were looking after the jobs in the auto sector. And now that very same auto sector has decided that they're going to go and take advantage of the spectacular corporate rates that Donald Trump is offering to these companies. And you would too if it was your company. What I want to point out is how the Liberal government has no back. They have no way to fix the problem, because when they arrived at the scene, things worked a certain way. And now that way has been broken, and they are incapable of responding to that, because they're not business leaders. They're not economists. They're not people who understand how to start things, get it up and running entrepreneurial like. They're lawyers. They have no idea what they're doing. Mark Carney is not an economist, like I told you. I mean, look at the idea that Mark Carney claims to be an economist, but he's actually a corporate raider. And Donald Trump doesn't claim to be either of those things. He claims to be from real estate. And he has invested $17 trillion of it he's gotten invested into his country. Canada has gotten zero invested. In fact, we're losing everything. All of the people that would have normally invested in Canada have decided to invest into the United States because the United States offers them things that Canada is not offering them. And the Liberal government is standing up and saying, we will fight, in all of the same old rhetoric and the same old sound bites that might play out well on TikTok, but are not playing out well with the 3,000 people that are losing their job in Oshawa, that are not playing out well with all of the 68,000 people that have lost their job in Southern Ontario in the last 6 months. So the rhetoric and the theater and the stamping your feet and, pointing your finger, it means absolutely nothing. The question was, is there a job guarantee? Can you turn to those 3,000 people and say to them, don't worry about it. We gave them $15 billion and they guaranteed your jobs for X number of years. Is that in the contract? Because if it's not in the contract, then those people have something to be afraid of. And that's what I think you are overlooking there with your theater, with your foot stomping and your finger pointing. There are real people's lives at stake. While you sit in the House of Commons collecting in a massive check and writing off every single thing that you touch, your food, your rent, your alcohol, everything, your driver, all of the things that you don't, so you don't even have to spend the money, you're getting paid. And these people's lives are falling to pieces right before their very eyes. So you go ahead and do all your little sound bites and all of the things that you think might sound like that they're going to play nice on TikTok. In the real world, people are losing their jobs and the economic impact is going to spill out in such a way that it's a domino effect. So all we see is the Liberal government saying nothing, doing nothing, talking, and no results being produced, because that is what you get when you hire people who are not qualified, who are not problem solvers, who are not trying to think their way through it, whose entire campaign was based on how much you dislike Donald Trump. That's just my opinion. You can let me know what your opinion is down in the comments. I'm going to wrap here. Thank you for listening. I'll talk to you next time.